Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back again to our ongoing series on the glories of our beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Happy to be with you. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pashtata Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So to set the scene today, I'd like to begin with really one of the most beautiful descriptions of Vrindavan I've ever come across, and I'm fairly sure you will agree. We find it in Srila Jiva Goswami's famous Gopal Champu, Part 1, Chapter 1, text number 6. It's a long text, but thankfully so. Quote, there exists a place called Vrindavan. It brings great auspiciousness to the earth goddess. This forest has the power to deliver all living beings throughout the worlds. The mere touch of its purifying breeze washes away all troubles. That touch opens the bolt on the door in the prison of the three Vargas: economic development, sense gratification, and material piety. And it carries away the fragrance of impersonal liberation. Its glories untie the bonds of impersonal liberation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead does not easily give the gift of devotional service. But in the land of Vrindavan, he gives it freely and easily at all times. In his heart, the demigod Brahma yearned to attain even a low birth in Vrindavan. Brahma worshipped Vrindavan. He thought his contact with Vrindavan was the beginning of his own glorious good fortune. The ways of Vrindavan are very mysterious. They are like the poetic ornament Viroda Alatikara, where what seems a contradiction is resolved in the end. Even if authors lack poetic skill, their poems about Vrindavan are always glorious. That is because in those poems is an awareness of what is truly important and glorious. To help the people of this world, blissful Lord Krishna, the son of Nanda, descends again and again to the realm of Sri Vrindavan. In this way, a great festival of bliss always fills Sri Vrindavan Dham. Unquote. Wow. So the other day, in our wanderings, we left off at the village of Nagarama, you may remember, in the beautiful forest of Gopavana. So today we'll begin our journey from Gopavana, and we'll wander to a very interesting forest with a very unique name. And the name of this forest is Gauravana. Gauravana. Shastras state, and I quote, north of Gopavana is Gauravana. It is named after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for this was the forest in which the Lord would rest beneath a large banyan tree when he visited that part of Vrindavan. So as we mentioned some months ago, Lord Caitanya arrived in Mathura and subsequently Vrindavan in the year 1515 A.D. And the Acharyas write, quote, often while in Vrindavan, the Lord would sit by Imlital in Sevakunj, or go to the Gauravana forest to rest. While resting, he would appreciate the sights of that forest, the sounds of its birds, and the fragrance of its trees. So the Acharyas are writing about Gauravana. Now it's described that wherever Lord Caitanya went in Vrindavan, during his visit there, his ecstasies attracted people by the thousands. And as a result, his servant, Balabhadra Bhattacharya, was always afraid for the Lord's safety because there were so many people coming in close. And so he was always in anxiety. So, and it's said that he was also unable to deal with all the invitations that the Lord was receiving for lunch. So, after consulting with his traveling companion, who at that time was the son of Diya Brahmana, Balabhadra decided that the Lord should end his visit to Vrindavan, and he should leave and go back to Jagannatha Puri. And when he proposed this to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the acharyas say, to please his servant, the Lord agreed. Such love. To please his servant, the Lord agreed. So they returned to Jagannatha Puri. But actually, we can say that the Lord never left or never leaves Vrindavan. How is that? Because wherever he went, he carried the mood of Vrindavan with him. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 3:33, we hear Advaita Acharya say to Mahaprabhu, Tumi yaha se Vrindavana. Wherever you are, O Lord, that is Vrindavan. It's a famous verse. Tumi yaha se Vrindavana. Speaking to Mahaprabhu, wherever you are, O Lord, that is Vrindavan. Because Mahaprabhu was trying to go from Mayapur to Vrindavan for the first time, but his devotees kept tricking him and pulling him back to Mayapur. So Mahaprabhu complained, but I want to go to Vrindavan. So Dvaitacharya said, Tumi yaha se Vrindavana. Wherever you are, O Lord, that's Vrindavan. And also we hear in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 16, verses 280 and 281, we hear Gadadhar Pandit say to the Lord, Tumi yahan yahan raha, tahan Vrindavana, tahan Yamuna Ganga, Sarva Tirtha Gana. It's also famous. Speaking to Mahaprabhu, wherever you stay is Vrindavan, as well as the river Jamuna, the river Ganges, and all other places of pilgrimage. Then he went on, Tabu Vrindavana yaha loka shik hayete, saiti karibe tomara ye laya chitte. Although wherever you stay is Vrindavan, you will still go to Vrindavan just to instruct people. Otherwise, you will do whatever you think best. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifests Vrindavan wherever he goes. And that was especially true while he was staying in Jagannatha Puri. For there in the famous Gambhira room, Gambhira, as we explained in a recent lecture, there he achieved one of his principal reasons for appearing in this world, and that was to experience the nature of Radharani's love for him as Krishna. And as we discussed in another lecture, the Lord had two assistants to help him in this particular endeavor to understand Radharani's bhav, Radharani bhav. And that was Swarup Damodar, who is Lalita Saki in the spiritual world, and you remember Ramananda Roy, who is Vishaka Saki in the spiritual world. But there were others as well assisting the Lord in Jagannatha Puri. For example, there's many examples, but one example is Vakashvara Pandit. Vakashvara Pandit. Vakashvara Pandit knew very much about Radharani's love for Krishna. He knew a lot about that love. How did he know? Well, that we understand from a celebrated Vaishnava scholar. His name was Dhyana Goswami, who writes in his Gora Govind Archana Shmarana Padati, verse 275, that in Krishna Lila, Vakashvara Pandit is Tungavidya Saki, one of the 8 Astasakis, or the close girlfriends of Sri Radha. So being one of the Astasakis, Tungavidya, obviously Tungavidya knows so much about Radharani, her love for Krishna. So she appeared in Chaitanya Lila as Vakashvara Pandit. So Vakashvara Pandit's assisting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also in helping him to understand Radha's love for Krishna. So Tunga Vidya, we've discussed a number of the Astasakis, so let's touch a little bit on Tunga Vidya and then we'll move on so we can appreciate what a great personality Vakashvara Pandit is. So Tunga Vidya's exalted qualities are described by Sri Rupa Goswami in Radhakrishna Ganodesha Dipika. There he states that Tunga Vidya Saki is the fifth of the Astasakis, and her complexion is the color of kumkuma, and the fragrance of her body is like sandalwood mixed with camphor. She's 15 days younger than Srimati Radharani, and she is hot-tempered and expert in the arts of disguise and camouflage. Those play into Radha and Krishna's pastimes, as we'll see a little later on. She wears white garments, and she's very learned in the 18 branches of Vedic knowledge. Actually, she's often described, as I was reading, she's often described as the scholar amongst the Astasakis. And Sri Rupa Goswami points out that, of course, she has full faith in Krishna, and she's very expert in arranging meetings between the divine couple. That's very much the theme of Vrindavan, isn't it? That Krishna is here and Radha is there, and the whole idea is that the Sakis and the Manjaris and even some of the cowherd boys, they arrange that Radha and Krishna can meet. Not only that, Rupa Goswami says about Tunga Vidya, she's very determined that they meet, very determined. And he relates a pastime where once Srimati Radharani was hiding her feelings of eagerness to meet Krishna. For whatever reason, it all plays into the pastime. She was hiding her eagerness to meet Krishna. So seeing this Tunga Vidya, again, who has the service of getting them to meet, she very boldly said to Radharani, "O Saki, O Radhe, you may curse me, you may hit me, you can shout at me, or expel me from your kunj, but I will not give up my firm determination. I tell you the truth. I'm going now to bring Krishna here. If there is any Saki who does not experience the urgency of you two meeting each other, then may she stop breathing and die." Wow, that's determination. That's from Ujjvala Nilamani, 773. And Ujjvala Nilamani also says that as a Saki, as a girlfriend of Sri Radha, Tunga Vidya doesn't hesitate to give instructions to Sri Radha when needed. These instructions are called Upadesh, like we have Upadeshamrita, the nectarean instructions in Krishna consciousness, Rupa Goswami's book. So we call it the nectar of instruction with Prabhupada's purports. So these instructions, like Tunga Vidya gives to Radharani, they're known as Upadesh. And here's an example that I found of an instruction to Tunga Vidya to Sri Radha in the Ujjvala Nilamani. This is chapter 11, text number 100. She's hot-tempered and she's really anxious for these meetings to take place. So she says to Sri Radha, "O silly girl, the attractiveness of youth is as flickering and temporary as a lightning bolt in a cloud. Contrary to this, the form of Krishna is wonderful in all the three worlds and rare to achieve. Therefore, go immediately to those forest bowers of Vrindavan that are buzzing with bees. In such forest bowers, enjoy yourself freely with that Lord of Lakshmi." She gave an instruction to Radha. We get to glimpse this through the heart, through the eyes of Srila Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami. So now Rupa Goswami goes on to say that Tunga Vidya is also well-versed in Niti Shastra, which means morality, like we have Chanakya Pandit has a book called Niti Shastra, how best to live in this world. It's not a very nice place, but there's by Niti, by logic and reasoning, you can live in such a way that you have time for Krishna consciousness. Nowadays there's so many books, right, by different authors, how to organize your time, how to be successful in business, how to live, etc. So that we find in its pure, those pure instructions are there in Vedic culture. So Tunga Vidya is very well versed in Niti Shastra, which means morality also. She's very well versed in dancing, in drama, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, literature. And she's also a celebrated music teacher as well. And she's the leader, I found this very interesting, she's the leader of those gopis, quote, who engage in fetching water from the streams in Vrindavan. That sounds like a very simple chore, we might think. But when you're doing a chore, when you're doing a service for Krishna, no matter how small it is, it's santushti, it's totally satisfying to the heart, because that's our relationship to Krishna, to Radha and Krishna. We're das, we're servants. And when we're in our constitutional position, as Prabhupada would often put it, when we're properly situated, doing our seva, our eternal seva to Radha and Krishna, even if it means just going to a stream in Vrindavan and bringing back some water, santushti, the heart is completely satisfied. So she's the leader of those gopis who engage in fetching water from the streams in Vrindavan. And to better understand her, we can again quote Dhyanachandra Goswami's book, Gaur Govind Archana Shmarta Padati. This would be verse 283. Very nice description of Tunga Vidya. I worship the very Rasik, Sri Tunga Vidya, he writes, who is adorned with sandalwood paste mixed with camphor. Her beautiful saffron-colored body is decorated with many fine jeweled ornaments. She delights in wearing a lovely red dress, and she has many wonderful qualities. She knows many transcendental songs, and she dances before Sri Krishna to the beat of a dumpha drum, unquote. Wow. Now, when we talk about the Astasakis, those that we've talked about, and I think we've lectured on most of them, we know they all have their particular villages which surround Varshana where Sri Radha lives. So Tunga Vidya's village around Varshana is called Dabha Rauro. Dabha Rauro. Dabha Rauro. And I read that because Tunga Vidya is very dear to Sri Radha, when both Tunga Vidya and Sri Radha were younger, much younger, it's written that Sri Radha would come to Dabha Rauro to play with her dolls along with Tunga Vidya. Hare Krishna. And I also came across a wonderful pastime that took place at Dabha Rauro, which I'll share with you. One day while Krishna was herding cows in the area of Varshana, Shubal Shaka told him that Srimati Radharani was playing nearby with many of her gopi girlfriends at Dabharo. So Krishna asked Subal to take him there. And following Subal, Krishna came to a cluster of trees near to what would eventually be called Dabharo. So there Krishna saw that the young gopis playing ball. Is described, quote, their dresses billowing in the wind and their laughter warming the sunshine. Their laughter was warming the sunshine. Their dresses were billowing in the wind and their laughter was warming the sunshine. Shri Brajabhumi Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki. So the Shastra says that, quote, these girls to Krishna, they look like this. The milkmaids of Vrindavan look like carefree goddesses of fortune. But one of them, Srimati Radharani, stood out like a sparkling diamond set amongst other valuable gems. When Krishna saw Radha's beautiful movements and heard her honeyed laughter, his eyes flooded, dubu. Flooded, dubu means to flood, with tears. From that day on, the village there was called Daboraru, coming from the word dubu, which means, Daboraru means the village flooded with tears. Whose tears? Krishna's tears. And that's Tungavidya's village. So once again, when we go on that much hankered after Kartik Parikrama, whenever that will be, let's go to Tungavidya's village and remember these wonderful pastimes. So it's that Tungavidya, obviously more clear to us now, learned in the science of rasa, or love for Krishna, who appeared in Chaitanya Leela as Vakashvara Pandit. So many of the female devotees in Krishna's Leela appeared as male devotees in Chaitanya's Leela. So she appeared as Vakashvara Pandit. Amongst other things, to facilitate Mahaprabhu's spreading the Yuga Dharma of chanting Hare Krishna, and to help him experience Radha's love for him, for Krishna. Lord Caitanya very much appreciated this devotee. One time he said, quote, Krishna personally dances in Vakashvara Pandit's heart. And many of you know from reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, sometimes Vakashvara Pandit would dance continuously for 3 days and nights or even longer without stopping to give pleasure to Mahaprabhu. And one time as Lord Caitanya was singing, Vakashvara Pandit blurted out in his ecstasy, quote, O Chandramukha, he's calling Lord Caitanya, O Chandramukha, please give me 10,000 Gandharvas. Let them sing as I dance, and then I will be greatly happy. He liked to dance for the pleasure of the Lord. So Mahaprabhu replied, quote, I have only one wing like you, but if I had another, certainly I would be able to fly in the sky, O Vakashvara Pandit. So I was reading, and it was pure nectar to read, in order to help facilitate Lord Caitanya experiencing this Radha Bhava. And this Radha Bhava, Radharani's love for Krishna is so rare that this Mahabhava, only three persons actually understand it and experience it. And that's, of course, Radharani, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Madhavinda Puri. We can worship it from a distance. So in order to facilitate Lord Caitanya experiencing Radha Bhav, Vakashvara Pandit established his headquarters in Puri in the house of a wonderful devotee called Kashi Mishra. Kashi Mishra, his home. And in that home, of course we know in that home is the Gambhira room. But in the house of Kashi Mishra, there was, and there still is, now it's called a mat. In that house was a very beautiful Krishna deity. And I researched that deity. The deity is called Radhakanta, the lover of Radha. That deity was acquired by Maharaj Patrapuruja's father, the great Purushottam Deva, who brought that deity back from the city of Kanchi after defeating that city's king. And at first when Purushottam Dev brought that beautiful Krishna deity back to Jagannatha Puri, the deity was placed in a small temple on the northwestern corner of the Jagannath Temple complex. But later, Kashi Mishra asked, some years later, Kashi Mishra asked Maharaj Patrapuruja, the son of Purushottam Deva, if he could personally have that deity to worship it, because it's so beautiful. So Maharaj Patrapuruja agreed, Well, in one sense, because Kashi Misha was the guru of Maharaj Prataparudra. He was the guru, so the disciple said, yes, Guru Maharaj, you may have that deity. So that deity, Kashi Misha established in his home. It's a big complex. And again, the deity's name is Radha Kanta, the lover of Radha. So Vakashvara Pandit made his headquarters in Kashi Misha's complex there. I've been there, I'm sure many of you have been there as well. And Vakashvara Pandit helped in the worship of that deity, as well as assisting Mahaprabhu in his quest for Radha Bhava. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he spent most of his time in Kashi Misha's house in that Gambhira room. Now I did a little more looking into the matter, and in the Oriyan language, because Jagannath Puri is in Orissa, a small separate room situated on temple grounds is given the name Gambhira. It's a separate room on the temple grounds. That's called Gambhira. And I found a quote by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written, quote, in the customary architecture of a temple in Orissa, the deity room itself has a veranda facing it. Facing the veranda is a paved and covered area known as dalana, and a small room within this area is given the name Gambhira. So he explained exactly how this room or this chamber Gambhira is situated in respect to the architecture of a temple in Orissa. It's really interesting. So for us Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the word Gambhira also has a deeper meaning. For the Shastras say, Gam, Gamane, Bi, Biyam, Ra, Rate. This means, quote, when Krishna goes away, Gam, then great fear, Bi, is demonstrated, Ra, by her, Sri Radha. Gambhira, Gamane Bhiyam Rate, they say, Sanskrit. But Gambhira, Gambhira, quote, when Krishna goes away, Gam, then great fear, B, is demonstrated, Ra, by her, Gambhira. Isn't that beautiful? You go into the Sanskrit language, there's so much to be discovered. Srila Prabhupada said one time it takes 30 years to master Sanskrit. So fortunately we have Srila Prabhupada who can explain these things to us and our previous acharyas. So Gambhira, that's the deeper rasic meaning. Now, our Vakashvara Pandit, he had a famous disciple whose name was Gopal Guru Goswami. And I was reading Jaiva Dharma the other day, which is a very important scripture written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Jaiva Dharma, really a summary of what is Krishna consciousness. And in Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's book, Jaiva Dharma, he mentions Gopal Guru Goswami. He writes, quote, Vakashvara Pandit's disciple, Gopal Guru Goswami, was the priest of Mahaprabhu's own math, meaning that Gambhira, that house. And in the house of Kashi Mishra in Purushottam, meaning Puri, he completely memorized the teachings of Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami. Bhaktivinoda Thakur refers to this devotee, Gopal Guru Goswami. Again, I'll quote him. Vakashvara Pandit's disciple, Gopal Guru Goswami, was the priest of Mahaprabhu's own math in the house of Kashi Mishra in Purushottam. He completely memorized the teachings of Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami. I was thinking, wow, who's this Gopal Guru Goswami? He seems to be a disciple of Vakashvara Pandit, and he's mentioned in Jaiva Dharma. So I spent a couple days looking, and I found some wonderful information about this devotee. From his childhood, Gopal Guru, later to become Goswami, was a very loyal disciple of Vakashvara Pandit. He took initiation when he was very young. And we'll also hear that he was a very special object of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's affection. And the actual name his parents gave him was Makaradhwaja. And because as he grew up, he's growing up in 10, 11, 12 years of age, he, even a little older, he got the name Pandita, super sharp. Makaradhwaja Pandita, that was his name. But because when he was young, quite young, Mahaprabhu has some special affection for the child. And he just called him Gopal, or Gopala. He didn't call him Makaradhwaja Pandit. He called him Gopal. Of course, when he was very young, he was Makaradhwaja, but a little later he became Pandit. But when he was young, just a boy, Mahaprabhu had some affection. He called him, hey Gopal, come here Gopal, oh, Gopal. And on one occasion, famously, he called this little boy Guru. That's where he got the name Gopal Guru. So he was, amongst the devotees with Mahaprabhu when he was there in Jagannatha Puri. Everyone just called him Gopal Guru, although his family name was Makaradhwaja. It's a nice pastime, actually, how he became known as Gopal Guru. I'll share that pastime. Once, and it's well known, once when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to answer the call of nature, this young boy, Gopal, followed him with a pitcher of water because he had that service attitude and he was serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he followed him with a pitcher of water. And on the way, Gopal noticed that the Lord was biting his tongue. And when little Gopal asked the Lord why he was doing this, the Lord replied exactly like this, quote, Mahaprabhu said, answering nature's call is contaminating. So I stopped my tongue from chanting Krishna's names while holding it between my teeth. Krishna is all pure and non-different from his name. Therefore, the name should not be chanted when one is in a contaminated state or in a contaminated place. From the mouth of the Lord. But little Gopal joined his palms and he said, Lord, you have taught us that Krishna and his name are not different, but you have also taught that Krishna's name is more merciful than even Sri Krishna himself. It is offensive to worship the deity in a contaminated state, but there are no hard and fast rules, you have said, for chanting the holy name. Indeed, you said it should be chanted always. So why can't it be chanted while answering call of nature? So when Lord Caitanya heard Gopal's reasoning, there's no hard and fast rules. There's so many rules for worshiping the deity, yes, but there's no hard and fast rules for chanting Hare Krishna. Kirtaniyat Sada Hari. Prabhupada said one time, you've got time, chant Hare Krishna. So when Mahaprabhu heard this young boy, Gopal's reasoning, he embraced him. And he said, quote, your words are full of wisdom. Today I have learned the truth of Krishna's name from you. So you are now my guru. Like that, he said. You are now my guru. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told his followers about this incident, and of course this was all the Lord's plan, but this is how the pastime unfolded. When everyone heard about this from Mahaprabhu, everyone started calling Gopal Guru, because Mahaprabhu said in a playful way, you're now my guru. So Gopal became Gopal Guru. So now growing up in Puri, Gopal Guru was blessed. Why was he so wise as a boy? Because he had the following teachers. Swarup Damodar Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, who was very much involved in Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Purushottam, Jagannatha Puri. His own spiritual master, Vakashvara Pandit, Lord Caitanya himself. What's that saying? It doesn't get better than that. Swarup Damodar, Raghunath Das Goswami, Vakeshwara Pandit, Mahaprabhu himself. It doesn't get better than that. So, of course, we would say, as modern-day Vaishnavas, it doesn't get better than having Srila Prabhupada as our founder Acharya, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. It's just as good, because he will lead us to those personalities. So as Vakeshwara Pandit's disciple, Gopal Guru was trained in deity worship, and so he worshipped this beautiful deity of Radhakanta that was won in warfare and brought to Jagannatha Puri, and whom Kashimisha personally asked the king for. So he was worshipping this deity of Radhakanta. Now, after the departure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his associates, because we know Gopal Guru was very young, and after the disappearance of his guru, Vakeshwara Pandit, Gopal Guru, now Goswami, installed a deity of Radharani on Krishna's left side, and the deity of Lalita on his right side. And while doing this, he also installed underneath the altar of Sri Sri Radhakanta, Radha and Krishna's altar, underneath that altar, deep in the ground, he installed a silver container with the kopans of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, his kopans. This was 500 years ago. He installed this silver pot with Mahaprabhu, because he was a personal servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so he had access to this tadiya. Tadiya means the paraphernalia of the Lord or the Lord's devotee. So he had this tadiya, the kopans. So he put in a silver pot and he placed it deep within the ground there under the altar. Now, tradition is that the pujaris of that temple, they take out that silver container of Mahaprabhu's kopans once a year. And they invite, important sadhus, heads of different maths in Puri, or even, a great devotee visiting from from Vrindavan, whatever, in Puri. They'll have a small darshan, and they show those, they take the silver container out underneath the altar. They have to dig it out, actually. They bring it out, and they show briefly, I've heard this, they briefly show Mahaprabhu's kopans to a small group of visiting sadhus. So in 1969, a very highly respected devotee scholar from Sri Vrindavan Dham was present as the main guest at that darshan of Mahaprabhu's kopans. And again, they just show them briefly. You get like a minute or two like that. So at the very last moment, this very distinguished Vaishnava, highly respected, he humbly requested the pujaris if he could have a small piece of those kopans. So this devotee was so much appreciated and respected, etc. The head pujari of the Radhakanta Math, he agreed, and he gave him a small piece of those kopans. And in the 1990s, we're jumping ahead here, that scholar, who was very old at that time, out of appreciation for what our Srila Prabhupada did in spreading Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement all over the world, he gave a small piece of those kopans, of that piece that he had. He gave a small piece of the kopans that he had been given to a friend of mine. And I think originally he had a piece about this big from the original kopans. So that piece, took a piece of that and he gave it to a friend of mine, who a few years ago, while I was in Vrindavan, gave a piece to me. And I have that piece of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's kopans. It's small, it's like this, framed on my altar. And every day I do puja to that, to those kopans of Mahaprabhu. That gift was given to me in Sri Vrindavan Dham. And often when I see it, I remember a beautiful verse by Sri Rupa Goswami. He writes in his Utkalika Valari, text number 66, he writes, in the sense that Vrindavan gives us so many gifts, the Dham is so special, so merciful. He writes, O handsome, fragrant Tamal desire tree, blooming in Vrindavan forest, and embraced by the Madhavi vine of the goddess ruling this forest. O tree, the shade of whose glory protects the world from a host of burning sufferings. What wonderful fruits do the people find at your feet? Vrindavan. What wonderful fruits do people find at your feet? What wonderful things do we discover or bestowed upon us? What blessings we receive by being in Vrindavan, in Mayapur, and Puri. So many things. So I remember that verse when I'm doing my puja to Mahaprabhu's Kopans. And the acharyas say that when the Kopans of a self-realized personality are accepted as prasad, quote, the attack of Kamadev and lust diminishes in the life of the recipient. The attack of Kamadev and lust, material desires, diminished in the life of the recipient. Now that's referring to a self-realized personality, a sadhu. What to speak if you get the Lord's paraphernalia as Kopans? And I researched even more some time back that in our Shastras there's also the pastime where, I believe it's in Chaitanya Bhagavat, where Lord Chaitanya rips apart the Kopans of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and then he orders a devotee to accept the threads of those Kopans as prasad. He tells that devotee, tie them on your head, and lust will immediately disappear from your heart. So Hare Krishna, I feel very blessed to have received that causeless mercy. So after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed from this world, Gopal Guru Goswami very carefully preserved that Gambhira room, that particular room. It was not a very big room, but that's where Mahaprabhu would experience all the ecstasies of Radha Bhav. You know, we read about it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's quite detailed. Even he was injured, just falling on the ground, just rubbing his head against the wall, and, you know, so many exhibiting the 8 symptoms of ecstatic love, and that's a very special room. So Gopal Guru Goswami, he preserved that. And it was he that established, as we see when you go there to Kashi Mishra's house, to the Radhakanta Math, they have certain items on display. And they say that's the Gambhira room. I've been told actually the actual Gambhira room where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually lived, he slept there and experienced his ecstasy, that's a chamber underneath the temple. That's what I've been told. It's not the actual place where they're displaying the items of Mahaprabhu's paraphernalia. It's a room that I think only very, very special, distinguished persons get to go and see. But anyway, there's the complex of Kashi Mishra. We're very close to that room, and there's the deities there, and there's, of course, the silver container with Mahaprabhu's kopa. There's so many things there, actually, in that complex. But it was Gopal Guru Goswami who established Mahaprabhu's wooden shoes there. And actually, there's a couple pairs of Mahaprabhu's shoes present well, one's in Orissa and one's in Bengal. And I was also blessed to receive very small pieces of Lord Chaitanya's wooden shoes from another very dear devotee who got them in a very special way as well. I won't go into detail now, but I also have that on my altar, and I have that in a frame with Shyamananda Pandit, a little piece of Shyamananda Pandit's charter. A lot of mercy. But we need mercy to be able to do what we have to do in spreading Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. That's how I see it. These items, whatever we get from Guru and Gauranga and the saints, this is we're meant to become purified and develop a strong desire to share Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy with others. So that's the mood in which I worship these items, as mercy to be able to share my good fortune with others. So anyway, getting a little off track here, sorry, but it is interesting. So Mahaprabhu's wooden shoes are there in the complex of Kashi Mishra's house. There's a quilt. There's some cloth. The quilt was, I heard, was made either by Swarup Damodar Goswami or Jagannatha Pandit. You can see that quilt there in the boxes they have there. And there's also a water pot made of clay from the Vrindavan area. Mahaprabhu must have brought that back to Puri, that the pot's made of clay, but the clay comes from the Braj Renu, from the dust of Vrindavan. You can see those things. They're on display. A little hard to see because they're kind of in a cage, but you can have that darshan in Jagannath Puri. So also, reading about Gopal Guru Goswami, I read in Narahari Chakravarti Thakur's Bhakti Ratnakara, chapter 8, that Narottam Das Thakur came to Puri and he met Gopal Guru Goswami, because we know Narottam appeared after, just before Mahaprabhu left, or some say after Mahaprabhu left. Narottam Das Thakur appeared in this world, and he went on parikrama. Several times he went on parikrama to visit holy places and to visit holy persons. So I was so happy to find in chapter 8 of Bhakti Ratnakara that Narottam Das Thakur met Gopal Guru Goswami when he came to Puri. It states that, quote, Narottam Das next went to Kashi Mishra's house. There he met Gopal Guru. And the next section says, actually quotes Gopal Guru Goswami. The quote is, Gopal Guru speaking to Narottam Das Thakur. It's just to hear the conversations of these great souls. So he says to Narottam, "O Narottam, look, in this very secluded place, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu would sit alone on a straw asana. In this place, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would lie down. Sri Govinda would massage his lotus feet. Who has the power to understand Lord Chaitanya's pastimes? He manifested ecstatic spiritual love that even Brahma and the demigods cannot properly understand." Wow. So there we have a conversation. At least we're hearing Gopal Guru address Srila Narottam Das Thakur. Wow. The scriptures are just full of these amazing pastimes. So as Gopal Guru Goswami grew older, he prayed to the Lord to send someone to help him in the service of the deities in the home there of Kashi Mishra, in that complex, again, which is now called the Radhakanta Math. So one night, Krishna appeared to him in a dream and told him, quote, "The first person you meet tomorrow, that will be your assistant." So the next morning, a young Brahmin appeared begging at Gopal Guru's door. And Gopal Guru could see the special nature of this young boy. And then he brought that boy into the ashram and he trained him and he later initiated him. And that's that Dhyanachandra Goswami that we've actually twice quoted today from his the book he wrote, Gaura Govindarchana Smara Asmarana Padati. We've quoted that scripture twice. So that was written by the disciple of Gopal Guru Goswami. So we're going through a lineage here, aren't we, of different great personalities today. So when Gopal Guru Goswami departed from this world, Dhyanachandra Goswami took his guru's body to Svargadwara in Puri. That's the burning grounds on the seafront. They call it, that means, Svargadwara means the gate to heaven. You leave this world and you go higher. So he took his guru's body to burn. And it's described that in the meantime, some representatives of the government came and they blocked off that Radhakanta Math, claiming that now the temple belonged to the government. Some corruption was there. Because Guruji had left, Gopal Guru Goswami had left, so now they thought this Radhakanta Mandir, this Math, they could take it over and make money from the pilgrims who come, whatever. So here we have, Dhyanachandra, he's like at the burning ghat, about to burn his guru's sacred body, place the ashes in the sacred ocean there where Mahaprabhu bathed. And when he heard this, that these government officials had come and they sealed off the temple, then he fell at his guru's body. The body was lying, hadn't been burned yet. The body was lying on the wood, and he was about to put the fire to the funeral pyre, but he didn't. He fell at the feet of his guru's body with tears flowing from his eyes, and he prayed, "Please, we have to save the temple. These historic deities." And the Gambhira room and all this, the government, they're going to take it over and just take advantage. So Gopal Guru Goswami came back to life, hearing that. Because these deities and this place and the Gambhira, it's so dear to Gaudiya Vaishnavas, came back to life, roaring the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He came back to life roaring like a lion. He just sat up, jumped off the funeral pyre, chanting it, kirtan all the way back to the Math. It's about nowadays it's about a 45 minute walk. And as soon as the government representatives heard that he was coming, they all ran away. So Gopal Guru Goswami, like everyone's amazed, like he died, but here he is, and he's walking. So he came back and he made up legal papers so no one could contest the ownership of the temple. Actually left it in the name of his disciple there. Everything became established properly, and then some weeks later, he departed the world on the 9th day of the bright fortnight of the month of Kartik. He left this world. And this time, at that time, his body was placed in Samadhi in Jagannatha Puri, where he had lived and served the Lord there, in that temple. However, one day, some months later, some devotees went from Puri to Sri Vrindavan Dham. And then they came back to Jagannath Puri, and they came back with some astonishing news. They came back with some astonishing news. They came to the Radhakanta Math, and they told Dhyanachandra Goswami that they had seen Gopal Guru living in Vrindavan in a sacred place called Dera Samira. Dera Samira. Dhyanachandra Goswami said, "What? No, it's not possible. Guru Maharaj left." And no, we saw him. He's doing bhajan at Dera Samira under a banyan tree. You can go see yourself. So Dhyanachandra Goswami, he was like doubtful, but he, these were Pakka sadhus. So he walked all the way to Braj, and he went to Dera Samira, and there was Gopal Guru Goswami sitting beneath a banyan tree in that kunj, Dera Samira, chanting japa. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Dhyanachandra Goswami said, "Guru Maharaj, how is this? You left your body in Puri. So Gopal Guru Goswami looked at his disciple and he lightly chastised him. And I love what he said. What did he say? How did he lightly chastise his disciple? He said, do you not understand the transcendental nature of Sri Vrindavan Dham? Do you not understand the transcendental nature of Sri Vrindavan Dham? Hare Krishna. So Dhyana Chandra, he began to weep in both happiness and distress. Then he said, Guru Maharaj, we can't tolerate your separation. Not for a moment more. Please come back to Puri. But Gopal Guru Goswami told him, quote, I will not return this time, but when you arrive back in Puri, you go to Siddha Bakul, where Haridas Thakur did his bhajan. There you will find an old tree. Have a deity made of me from that tree. When you offer bhoga to Radhakanta, place that deity in front of the Lord. Through that deity, you will continue to have my darshan. I will not return this time, but when you go back to Puri, go to Siddha Bakul, where Haridas Thakur did his bhajan. There you'll find an old tree. We know that tree. Bakul tree. Have a deity made of me from that tree. And when you offer bhoga to Radhakanta, Shri Radhakanta, place that deity in front. And through that deity, you'll continue to have my darshan. So, that deity of Gopal Guru Goswami can be seen even today, sitting in an asan right next to the to Shri Radhakanta in that temple, Kashi Mishra's house. You can go. The deity's there, made from that Siddha Bakul tree. And they offer the prasad to the Lord and then to Gopal Guru Goswami. You can sit there and watch. So on a later visit to Vrindavan, some months later, Dhyanachandra Goswami established a Radhakanta temple in Vrindavan, not far from Gopeshwara Mahadev. Actually, it's only a few meters from Srila Srinivas Acharya's Samadhi Mandir, where we sometimes go in our parikamas. Hemata Goswamini and Ramchandra Kaviraj, they also have their samadhis there, that famous place that we go. Just a stone's throw from there is this Radhakanta Mandir that was established by the disciple of Gopal Guru Goswami. And what he did is when establishing that temple, he installed a second deity of Sri Gopal Guru Goswami, just like the first deity that's there in Puri, similar, and he established Radhakanta deities too. And just to reveal a secret, that temple is one of my favorite places to disappear when things get really busy and need a little break. To disappear and spend some time alone or with a couple of devotees. It's a very mystical place. It's not so well known. Again, I'm revealing it's an open secret. You should go there. We shouldn't keep these things to ourselves. It's maybe a 10-minute walk from Gopeshwara Mahadev. You just keep walking down the road and you turn right. It's just before the Samadhi Mandir complex of Srinivasacharya. You walk out, it's a 2-minute walk. And you walk up some steps, you go in that temple. There's the deity of Gopal Guru Goswami. There's beautiful Radhakanta deities. Also, 450 years old, not more. And just the atmosphere, you can feel the presence of Gopal Guru Goswami, and the deities are very special, very mystical. So I like to go there, just chant japa for a few hours, or read Bhagavatam, read Chaitanya Charitamrita. Very, very special place. So if you have time, you now you know. Of course, the Brajbasis know that place. I'm sure that Dinabandhu Prabhu, Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, they know that place. But Not many devotees go there, but it's mystical. And now that you know about more about Gopal Guru Goswami, you can go there. So Gopal Guru Goswami, he also wrote a book called Shri Gaura Govind Archana Smarana Padati. He was just like his disciple wrote that book. We've quoted it several times today. Actually, Gopal Guru was the first to write it, Shri Gaura Govind Archana Smarana Padati. And then his disciple, Dhyana he also wrote, but called it the same thing, but for whatever reason. But there's two copies, but they're different, a little bit different. But Gopal Guru Goswami's Gaur Govind Archana Smarana Padati, it deals with the, I was reading it the other day, it deals with the general practices of spontaneous devotional service. Raganuga Bhakti. It's interesting. And for that, and everything else he did for us, we must thank him. I always knew that temple existed. I'd heard the story about, how he'd advised Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but it wasn't until I really studied his Leelas the last few days that I came to really understand and to appreciate him. So the acharyas, they conclude, all glories to Gopal Guru, through whom Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us that a great person can take an instruction even from a young child, if that child happens to speak the truth. All glories to Gopal Guru, through whom Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us that a great person can take instructions even from a young child, if that child happens to speak the truth. Like the Bible says also, right? And a child shall lead them. So I'd like to finish today with the following kirtan, the following song, sung in Vrindavan on Gopal Guru's Goswami's disappearance day. It's called the Gopal Guru Goswami Suchaka Kirtan. So the first verse in the song. O Gopal Guru, you are my devotional desire tree. Your name was previously Makaradhwaj, but Sri Krishna Chaitanya called you Gopal because your behavior as a child reminded him of Gopal Krishna. You were always absorbed in the joy of serving Gauranga. Indeed, you knew nothing other than him. You could not tolerate being separated from the Lord even for a moment. It was as if Gaura was your very life and soul. One day, Gopal taught some devotional practices to a child. The Lord was so ecstatic that he said to everyone from today on, I will call him Gopal Guru. Tears filled the devotees' eyes when they saw how merciful Lord Caitanya was to you. It appeared as if an ocean of joy was overflowing Jagannatha Puri. Everyone agreed that the name given to you by the Lord was extraordinary. Indeed, we have now seen how it has spread throughout the world. I am incapable of describing your devotion to your guru, Vakashvara Pandit, who was always satisfied with you. No one can compare to your singing the glories of Lord Krishna. You were always intoxicated by the sound of the holy names, and thus you were attractive to all. Everyone recognized that there was no one as merciful as you. Who in the world did not sing your glories? You made everyone worthy of loving ecstasy. It is only I, Narahari, who have been deprived because of my own misdeeds. Hare Krishna. So, yes, interesting lecture today, tying Vrindavan Leela into Gaura Leela. Maybe it's an indication that soon we'll be moving on to Gaura Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Mayapur and also in Jagannatha Puri. So Prabhus, thank you so much again for this ongoing opportunity to share all this nectar with you. And today was really nectar, hearing about these wonderful devotees. And visiting a special place, wasn't it? Gauravan. Hearing about Vakashvara Pandit and Gopal Guru, Goswami, etc. I'll take your leave and go back to my library, and I'll be back in a couple of days. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Gauranga Dham ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Jagannatha Puri Dham ki, Goloka Vrindavan Dham ki, Jai Jai Sri Sri Radhe Shyam. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.